A video I've been wanting to make involves moving across the country. I know for most people this can seem like a very intimidating thing to do, so I figured it would be helpful to talk about my experience and maybe the choices I made to prepare for it, as well as why I chose to move from New Jersey to San Diego. So before I get to the actual move, let me talk about why I decided to move. Um, while I was thinking about moving, I was living in a condo that was very spacious. I think it was like 900 square feet. And my living situation was great, but I was unhappy at my job. So I joined Chubb, the insurance company, in June of 2015. And then 6 months after that, they became bought out by Ace, a bigger company. And once January 2016 happened, there were a lot of shifts where one of my coworkers ended up resigning. They laid off another person that did a lot of Microsoft Access database work. So I had to take on all of his responsibilities and then do a lot of work that was not what I originally signed on for. All the higher ups that were above my manager ended up kind of switching, or they changed roles, or they were laid off. So basically the instruction from the top down also started shifting, where I started doing less technical work and I started doing a lot of admin work, like generating reports and stuff like that, and I did not like doing any of that. Plus, eventually they ended up laying off my manager also, who I was very close to. And after that point, I was just like, fuck this, I need to leave this company because I'm not happy here. And there's no opportunity for me to continue growing my skill set or doing anything technical. So at some point, I started working from home every single day without getting permission to do so. My manager was remote. He lived in California, so he wasn't actually aware that I wasn't in the office, but soon, his higher up, some cranky ass woman, asked him if I've been in the office, because she would come in once in a while, and for some reason she would take notice that I wasn't there. So I think one time when he was in New Jersey visiting, he asked me to speak to him in person and was wondering, what has been going on, and I kind of told him the truth, where I didn't really feel like I had a purpose coming into the office, because a lot of the work, basically all of the work I was doing, could be done remotely. And since nobody interacts with me in the office, like my job required very little interaction, or if it did, it could be easily done over the phone, I just chose not to go in. But after that meeting, he told me that I had to go back to go into the office 4 days a week and then working from home only for one. So at that point on, I was, getting more and more unhappy about my work situation. Even though my life at home was great, working 40 hours a week still kind of dominates a majority of your life. So if you're not happy at your job, then it's really hard to be happy overall. So that was a change I really knew that I needed to make. I needed to find another job. So also at the beginning of Legion, I started talking to a friend that I met from WoW. He was somebody that I raided with in Burning Crusade. End of Burning Crusade and some Wrath of the Lich King. No, we only raided in Wrath of the Lich King and also Cataclysm. But he lived in San Diego. He kept talking about how great it was here weather-wise. And another big thing that I was struggling with at the time was, after getting Riley, I found it very difficult to walk her during the winter. I've mentioned in a previous vlog, but I am incapable of retaining body heat or something, but I get cold very easily. So if it's 70 degrees out, but there's a strong breeze, I get cold if that wind is blowing against my skin. I feel like the second something cold blows against my skin, then that is the dominating feeling that I have. So for example, if I'm in the car and there's AC on and it's blowing directly on me, then there's 100% chance that I'm cold. And in the office, I wear a down jacket. Basically every office that I've been in, they have it set to like 72, but it tends to be too cold for me always, to the point that it's very uncomfortable. So having to walk her in the cold, New Jersey winters were like 30 degrees at times, or even lower if there were those occasional days like that. So it became very hard for me to walk her and not feel super annoyed about it. But I knew I still wanted to, because that was for her own good, to get her out there, spread her legs, get some fresh air, and get some exercise. But I was struggling a lot with wanting to walk her, and then, you know, having to layer yourself just to walk her. And even if I layered myself, I was still very cold, so nothing really works for me in keeping myself warm in temperatures like that. So the San Diego weather was very appealing in that regard. But yeah, so I started applying to a bunch of jobs in San Diego, and eventually I did get to a point where there was a startup company that wanted to trial me for a week. So what they were asking for was for me to fly out there for a week. They would pay for that, and then I would work with them for a week. And then after that, they would determine whether they wanted to hire me. So that occurred in February of 2017. So when I went out there that week, I stayed with my friend Shane, which is the one that I was talking to on WoW. And then I did my week there, and then afterwards I felt pretty confident that I would get it, but it turns out that I didn't get it. So after that point on, having to start over, it felt like a really big blow to my confidence in being able to get out of the current situation I was in. But somehow, I don't even remember what the process was like or how long it took necessarily. Well, I know how long it took because I got my new job in April, but between February and April, in the very beginning, after I returned to New Jersey, after that work trial and heard I wouldn't be getting the job, I was pretty down about it because I thought that that was the opportunity I had, and then I didn't get it. So I had to start all over again. But yes, eventually, after persistence, I guess, and applying, I managed to get an offer here for the software engineer position. So admittedly, coordinating stuff to move here was a little difficult because I was living in a condo that I co-purchased with my dad. When I was looking for a place to live, when I was just about to get Riley, I was having a lot of difficulty finding a home that would let me have a dog, like a Siberian Husky. But the thing is, since I didn't have her at the time, I considered Huskies medium to large dogs, which they are. I had no idea that I would be getting a tiny Husky, but I found some really odd locations and my parents came to see them with me. So they were like, please don't rent from these really strange, terrible locations. And then they decided that they wanted to buy a condo to kind of help me with my living situation. That way, you know, I didn't have to deal with some random landlord. My landlord would be my dad. So the problem with that when I was moving was that I needed to help him find another tenant that could take over since I would be moving out. And that also put some additional pressure on me because I really wanted to move to San Diego as soon as possible because I wanted to just, you know, get a fresh start, enjoy, explore everything here. But if I left too early and we didn't find a tenant, then it would be bad news. I also had to coordinate making sure that I had enough money in between ending work and before starting that I could set everything up. So it was very complicated in that aspect. But after I gave my 2 weeks at work, they actually said that they wanted me to come into the office for those 2 weeks for God knows what reason. But I actually said to my manager that I'm not coming into the office because they were not willing to work with me for making my life there better than miserable. I feel like they kind of just neglected my needs and were just very strict about things that didn't need to be. So I pretty much rejected his request, and they didn't really push the issue. My manager that I got switched to, he was actually a nice guy. He just seemed like the type of person that really follows rules and does not challenge people. So I feel like the higher up bitch woman liked him, and because he was, very, I don't want to use the word obedient, but I feel like that's kind of applicable, that was why she liked him. So after the 2 weeks were up, I also had to schedule shipping my car here. So what I decided with this move is that since I'm young and since I'm not attached to any of the furniture that I currently own, I decided to sell most of it, or for my bed, I returned it to my parents, which is kind of sad because I've been using that bed for like 18 plus years and I actually really like it and I miss it because the one I'm using now from Shane sags like a motherfucker. But yeah, I had to return the bed to my parents. I sold my couch, which was sad because I sold it for like 25% of what I bought it for. I bought it for like $1,100 and I think I sold it for $200 to $300. But I was kind of pressured to make sure I got rid of it, otherwise my parents would be stuck with it. I didn't manage to sell my TV, so they have it. I don't know what they chose to do with it. I had IKEA desks. I think they took it home too. I feel like my parents are hoarders, so I kind of feel bad that they took over my leftovers, but maybe they have use for it eventually. So even in New Jersey, I still lived in a similar manner to here, in the sense that I purchased furniture for my own use. So for example, I never owned a dining table because I live by myself. I usually eat at my computer desk, and I rarely had guests over, so if they wanted to eat something, they can just hold their bowl. I'm not going to buy a dining table only for guests. I feel like the purpose of a dining table is either if you have a family, or like I just mentioned, it's for somebody else's benefit, not for mine. So that's a lot of money to be spending for somebody else. Anyways, I didn't have that many furniture to get rid of, so I only managed to sell a few, and then the rest my parents took over. So yeah, what I decided to do was to ship as much as I could in my car. So the reason I decided to do that was because initially when I was quoting my furniture move, even though I didn't have a lot, it was still being quoted upwards of $3,000, which was too much. I couldn't afford it. Yeah, this move wasn't exactly planned out very well. I didn't have many savings beforehand when I decided it. It was kind of, I decided it rather quickly because usually if I don't like something and I want to change the scenario that I'm in, I could be a little rushed and I'm not very patient. So that's the downside. But anyways, yeah, did not want to ship my furniture because it was just too much. So shipping my car ended up being $1,100 roughly. And then since I was packing so much shit to put in my car, they said an additional 100 pounds. I think I probably packed over, but I needed to get everything in that shipment. So they charged an extra $100, I think, for all that stuff. So what I basically put in my car was like my clothes, my computer chair, because there was no way I was gonna get rid of that one, at least because I bought it for quite a bit. And then I just don't even know. I think I brought mostly clothing. Everything else, like I tried to bring documentation, important documents that I need. I didn't bring any kitchenware or any silverware. So I can't remember exactly all of what I brought, but it just wasn't very much. I had mostly plans to just buy everything new when I got here. And I didn't want to cram my car too much. My car is not very big, so it was kind of hard to fit everything in there. I also needed to drive my car home, which is where I planned to have it picked up to be shipped here. So on the day of my flight, I had to pack all 3 of my pets into my car and then drive home. So normally I always have Riley crated in the car, but since the back was packed up the ass, I had to put 2 cats in their crates in the back of the car. I think Milo was riding like diagonal or sideways at the time because that's like what I could fit, but it was like a 40-minute drive, so I think he was okay. But I had Riley in the passenger seat all like cramped in a Firefox style. But yeah, that's what I had to do. I dropped off my car there, and then my parents drove me to the airport with all three pets in the back seat of the car. So what I had originally planned was to ship both cats in cargo, and then I had an emotional support animal letter to get Riley in the plane with me. I was really uncomfortable with the idea of having her go into cargo as well. So I wanted to make sure that she could get on with me, and I'm really lucky that she's small because I think that really helps make it less complicated of a process. I had considered driving across the country, but I just don't do very well being in the car for more than 40 minutes. I feel like after that, I start feeling very miserable, feeling sick. I get car sick, I'd say, pretty easily. So having to put my pets and me through such a long drive across the country, I didn't want to do that. Plus, it would add miles to my car, which I already drove down from New Jersey to Florida and back once. So that is a lot. But anyways, I had issues with getting my cats on the same flight because I was really stupid. I was ignorant. I did not read their regulations for what the crate requirements had to be. So one of my crates was not good enough. I think they wanted a crate that didn't have any top opening because they say just in case something falls over, it can't like potentially get inside the crate from the top and harm the animal. And then it also needed kind of like screws around the side to hold the top and the bottom part of the crate together. The one I had was just like a plastic clip that would hold it together, so that probably wasn't safe enough. So that really sucked to find out right before I was about to fly out, and it was getting very close to my flight, and I was in the airport with my mom and Riley. This was her first time in the airport, and I was really nervous about how many people there would be around and all of those distractions. So we kind of decided to put the cats on another flight. I was, kind of disappointed in myself for not being more prepared. I didn't want my parents to have to do any effort in terms of my move. I kind of wanted to make sure I handled all of it. So what they kind of ended up doing was they brought the cats back on to another shipment that I had to call for, and they bought the proper crates and then they shipped them over to me the next day. But in terms of Riley, the process was actually not so bad. It was pretty smooth. I just showed them the letter and then mentioned that I had actually got it pre-approved. So what I did was I emailed United Airlines, I think. They had an email that they posted on the website in terms of stuff like this. So I emailed them with an electronic copy of my letter to make sure that everything would be okay, and then they approved it. So to kind of assist with the in-person, I had the email that also said it was approved to kind of expedite things. And then from that point on, I just kind of headed over to the terminal. I was just waiting around. And so the thing that I really want to say is that flying with a pet, especially a dog, actually sucks because of people, not because of the dog. And that's in my personal experience, because for people that are familiar with me, she is extremely well trained. However, I cannot control the actions of other people. So what made flying with her extremely stressful was fending off every single person that tried to touch her without asking me. She had a do not pet vest on, actually. This was the vest that she had on, and people would still try to touch her because they would either be approaching her from the front so they wouldn't be able to read it, or I feel like people just, for some reason, ignore and just try to go for it. So I felt pretty irritated and annoyed. And I wasn't able to relax because I had to make sure that I would be able to prevent people from doing something that I didn't like. So throughout the entire flight, waiting in the terminal, even being on the plane. So what ended up happening was that I had the seats right behind the bathroom, so there was a little bit more leg room. And there were 3 seats. There was one woman sitting at the window. There was nobody in the middle, and I suspect that's because that I had Riley. And then I was sitting at the aisle seat. And then I just had Riley pretty much either right in front of me, or she could, go in between me and the woman if she wanted. But I did tell the woman to please not touch her, and the woman was actually extremely respectful. And I was so glad that she was like that, because I didn't have to worry about her at all. She respected a simple request. That's what most people should do, right? But no, I had flight attendants that would walk down the aisles making kissy noises, which it's not necessarily touching, but it's just, I kind of think it's so stupid that people do stuff like that, because since when did we think that dogs like us making kissy noises at them or something? Like, why do we treat dogs like they're babies? Or why do we even do that stuff to babies? I guess it's entertaining for them, but back on topic. Yeah, she was very good for the whole flight. I was really amazed. I let her out to pee right arriving at the airport, so I'd say it was a direct flight, roughly 6 hours. And she was so good. But right after getting off the plane, I kind of ran outside because I didn't want to risk her having an accident in the airport or anything. But yeah, she was so good. The only thing that she got startled at was the stupid toilet flushing. And I just wanted to make sure that she didn't put too much attention on people going in and exiting the bathroom. I just wanted her to, just chill out, stay calm for the whole flight. And she was really, really good. Oh man, I'm out of breath. I was talking too much. But yeah, I'd say that was really just the entire process that I had. Originally, I did plan to live with Shane for a while before I got on my feet. But then I kind of realized I wasn't doing so well living with somebody. It just didn't feel right. I didn't feel like I knew how to act having someone there around all the time. It's something I wasn't really used to at all, so I just decided to get my own place because it would just be more comfortable for the both of us. And yeah, I think it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I actually don't think I would have decided to do what I did if he didn't just tell me to say fuck it and just go for it, because I tend to have a very safe view of what decisions I end up making, and not having much savings and moving across the country, it doesn't really qualify for that. And I think also at the time I was considering doing all of this without having a job locked down here, because I didn't get confirmation that I got the job offer until kind of late in the whole process. So I feel like I did kind of luck out. But yes, definitely one of the best decisions I've made, because I feel like the idea of generally expecting sunshine when you live in San Diego is really, really good, at least for someone like me. Just whenever the sun is out, I just always tend to feel happy. So when it's cloudy in the morning and I'm looking out and it's almost lunchtime when I come home to walk her, once the sun pops out, when I'm on my way to the car to drive home, I just feel so great. And since I am very sensitive to the cold, the temperatures here being great year round is also another thing I don't have to worry about. Plus, I have been walking her so much more than I did in New Jersey. I have been outdoors and active so much more than I was in New Jersey, because when it's cold out in New Jersey, I just want to hole up and never leave my house. So if it's a nice day out here, which it's almost every day, you just want to go out and do something, right? You feel adventurous. And I think it's very important for me, at least, to bring her out and walk her as much as possible. She gets at least 2 walks per day, 3 if I'm feeling daring in the morning. Sometimes I'm too tired to do it, but it makes me happy, and I am really glad I took that leap. It was risky, but it was absolutely worth it. So my car did actually take 1 week to ship. My car was picked up the day of my flight, I think, and then it arrived on Friday. So it was picked up on Saturday, and I was without a car for a few days. So if you do want to make sure that your car arrives here relatively around the same time that you do, make sure that it's picked up sooner, because I did feel like not having my own car sucked a lot, because it is really important for transportation and relying on somebody else isn't the greatest, and I'm not a big fan of using Uber because it's just expensive. So yeah, that's just, I think, the last thing that I can think of in terms of my move. It was the first time I was outside of New Jersey, living wise. So I do miss New Jersey quite a bit sometimes because of familiar stuff. There was a park near my condo that nobody really went to pretty often. So I would always have an empty park for fetch. And that's something that I miss really badly because that doesn't exist here in the city. That's something I'm still looking for. So we'll see. If I move and am able to find some empty park, I'll be really thrilled. Or just have a backyard big enough for it. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope whatever I said, anything I said was helpful to motivate you, whether it was informative for pricing and stuff like that. And if you have any additional questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section.